Okay, daily Chumash for Shlishi of Vayikra. Pasuk Zayin, verse 7. If your offering is a deep fried meal offering, which we had the pictures yesterday, using a deep fried, like a deep pan, a scooper, a deep frying pan, thank you. Then it shall be made of seirless Bashem and Tiasa, it shall be made of fine quality flour and oil. Marcheshes is deep fried. It's a vessel that was used in the temple. Mike. Because it is deep, Sham Netzav in or surfeit. The oil amassed in it, and thus the fire did not burn it. Lefichach, because it was deep, its oil amassed in it, and the fire did not burn it. Therefore, the meal offerings inside it quiver. So, like deep frying, it's because anything that is soft and elastic due to the liquid inside it appears that it quivers and shakes. So marchesha means it's a shaking meal offering because it's got a lot of oil that. Ches you shall bring that meal offering. Asher yasam elash, and you bring from all these kinds. So all the above we talked about the deep pan firing, we talked about the flat pan, we talked about the two loaves, the oily loaves. The kriva la kohen, you bring it, you present it to the kohen, the kisha el mizbech, and bring it near to the altar. That was made from these. It was made one of these different kinds of meal offerings. So this is now qualifying all the four categories we said. The kriva, the owners bring it to the kohen. The gisha, and the kohen then takes it. He approaches with it to the altar. He brings it to the southwestern corner of the altar. Tess. The kohen shall then, so he's got this meal offering in a basket, a bowl. He then shall separate from the meal offering as askarasa. Askarasa means the part of it that is going to be commemorated, the commemorative part. The part, how do they translate? I know, but let's see. Cost is something that's better. They have a finer English.
Yeah.
The memorial fistful. The memorial fistful of the bowl of flour stuff, or the loaves, the pieces of loaves, the memorial fistful, and you burn that up on the altar. You burn it up on the altar as a fire offering to a pleasing aroma for Hashem. It's askarasa, it's commemorative part or memorial fistful. This is the kaimitz, the fistful we talked about. You take the 3 fingerful, and then v'chol dvash. Next Rashi, next pasuk, Yud. The remainder of the meal offering, la'arin lovanov, shall belong to Aaron and his sons. Kodesh Kodashim Yishe Hashem. It's a holy of holies for them after the fire offerings of the eternal have been offered up. Anything left over goes to Aaron and his son, the Kohanim. Yud Aleph, Kol Min Chashat Tikriv Hashem. Any meal offering that you offer to God, Lo Yishyas HaChametz, you shall not make it of leavened bread. Kichol Sar V'chol Dvash, because every all the the sa'ar, the leavened bread, chodavash, and all the sourdough, all sourdough, I think, yeast, chodavash, and every bit of honey. You shouldn't offer it a fire to God. Rashi, chodavash. So dvash we call honey, but it actually means any nectar. Any fruit nectar is called dvash. And actually, when we say the land of milk and honey, we mean the land of milk and nectar. It's referring to date nectar, date and fig nectar, or honey, whatever. So you're not allowed to offer any of the fruit nectar on the altar. Yud Beis, Karban Reishis Takriva Yisam Hashem. As a first fruit offering, what do you do with those fruits? A first fruit offering, you offer them to Hashem. But they may not be brought on the altar to be a pleasing aroma. As a first fruit offering, you may offer them before Hashem, but they must not be brought on the altar to be a pleasing aroma. Rashi, what's a first offering? Why we mention, what do you allow? So you can't bring the altar, but what could you do with them? You bring them a first offering to God. It says Rashi, what do you do with chametz? The first chametz loaves are used on the Shavuos altar. You bring 2 chametz loaves from wheat. But those come from sourdoughs. Those have to be leavened loaves.
Keeps talking.
Shinemar chametz tifaneh, because they have to bake them as chametz by Shavuos. Ubikurim min advash, and bikurim, the first ripening produce, comes from nectar. Bikurim comes from nectar, such as first ripening figs and dates. Yeah. Because you bring figs and dates from part of the bikurim, the first fruits. Also, I think it starts at Shavuos. Yeah, you're saying?
Sourdough and challah.
Sourdough means a natural yeast to make bread, not the kind of the yeast that they, make most
Not
bread
sourdough,
from.
we eat it sometimes.
So sourdough bread, I think it just uses, why is it called sourdough? Because the starter for the yeast agent is this like fermented dough.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they made bread until modern yeast.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Now it's more in style because it's taka very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yud Gimel. Chol Karban, it's back to the secular world is desirous for authenticity. So there are trends that they don't realize are just authenticity seeking, like sourdough bread.
Mm-hmm.
That's my theory.
It's a good one.
We've eviscerated religion and tradition and that type of authenticity.
Right.
So but it's a human need to have authenticity. So you got to look for things you find within the secular culture, things that are, timeless, like sourdough bread, or names today for kids. Names today, kids isn't like John and Michael and Jessica. It's like Harrison, Kennedy, Washington, Lincoln.
Really?
I think people want like timeless or very authentic old names. That's my unverified anecdotal social commentary for today. Yud Gimel. Chol Karmen Chasam Elach Timlach. Parker. A lot of names.
Go, Rabbi, go.
You shall salt every one of your meal. You shall salt every one of your meal offerings with salt. You must not withhold the salt of your God's covenant from upon your meal offerings. On every offering of yours you shall bring salt.
This does not mean that every time you say a motzi, you have to have salt.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Every other offering of yours you shall bring salt. Now, this is not what it's talking. It's not talking about motzi. It's talking about by the altar.
Yeah.
Every offering, the meal offerings, at least I think also the regular offerings, came with salt. It says clearly the flour offering bring with salt, and all the other carbon, the animal ones, you bring with salt. It says very clear. Rashi, melech bris, you have to bring the salt of God's covenant. Shabris krusel melech sheshes yemei breshus. For there's a covenant form relating to salt already from the 6 days of creation. Basically, this is a really cool Rashi mentioning a medrash. We know the second day of creation. What was the second day of creation? Separated what? The waters.
Waters.
To the atmospheric waters and even the higher waters, and then the lower waters, the ocean. I think within the atmospheric waters was also divided, the spiritual waters, whatever that means, maybe the energy of the waters. So it says at that time, the malach, the angel representing the lower waters, complained to God. Mm-hmm. Why do we get the raw end of the deal to be the crass version of waters, the corporeal version of waters, and the other waters, they get to be in the heaven, the atmospheric, the heavens, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's not fair. One is more closer to God's revelation. Seemingly, revelation, not God's ultimate point. We know, Tanya, we know the secret, but at least on the face of it, it feels more spiritual in the heavens, right? So God says, you have a good point. I've actually validated the lower waters. It says, to make it up for you, there's going to be a Jewish people. There's going to be human beings. And they're going to make a temple for me. In the temple, they're going to have a big part of it is going to be the sacrifices, the karbanos. And I'm going to make a rule that they can never do any carbon without salt.
Wow.
So because where does salt come from? The lower waters. The lower waters. Okay. So now the lower waters, they always get to be part of the altar. So it's like you're not going to have the natural place in the heavens, but you're going to be vital to the altar.
Now you know about salt.
Which fits, if you know Chassidus, it fits very well, right? Like there's a lot, it all fits well. But anyways, and also they're gonna have to pour water by the festival of Sukkot, the Nisach Hamayim. So the point is, water and salt from the lower waters will always be part of the temple service. Because they feel they got the raw end of the deal. It says, if you want to see the language, 123 is the medrash is when the lower waters were separated from the upper waters, they broke out in tears. They cried. They had salty tears.
No fun.
The ocean cried. So Hashem said, "Quiet. I will make you part of the port offering of water." But they were not appeased because that's only once a year. So Hashem said, "I'll take the salt on every single day of the altar." Wow. And this is why today, when we eat food, it's considered a replacement in many ways of the act of the sacrifices on the altar, elevating the physical food into godly energy. And what's the sin qua non of the meal is bread, and you can't have so bread is meal initiator. You have to have salt with bread.
So that the answer to my question is yes. You do.
Yes.
Have to, every
Yeah.
time you have a sandwich,
A little bit of salt, yeah.
A little bit of
And if you
salt.
don't have salt, you dip it into the bread itself because there's salt in the bread naturally. But you should get some salt.
But we have the salt.
I'm just telling you cheating life hacks of observance, you know. Okay. Yud Gimel, Yud Daled. V'im taker minchas bikurim l'Hashem. And when you bring the meal offering of the first ripening grain, aviv. So when you bring the first ripening grain, you got to bring aviv. It's got to be first fresh, kalui, ba'esh, parched in fire.
This is Shavuos now, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's second day Pesach.
Pesach.
Geras carmel, coarsely ground. Takriv is minchas bikurecha. This is how you offer your first ripening
This is
grain.
the Omer.
It's the omer, yeah. Bikurim is it just means first gift. Colloquially, we typically say bikurim. We use it to refer to the fruits that you bring by Shavuos and on of the first ripening fruits.
Right.
But the truth is, bikurim means the first ripening of any category.
Right.
So this first ripening of wheat, that's the Shavuos loaves, not the bikurim fruits, and the bikurim of barley is the omer. So Rashi's v'im here, Rashi Daled, the im, how the im is shamish loshen ki. Im most
Barley harvest, that's right here.
im means usually if, but sometimes you said im could mean when. Sure, and it's not if you want to bring the barley, you have to. When you will bring it yearly, the barley offering, because we're talking minchas ha'omer kos medaber, shichev, which is an obligation. Minchas bikurim, the meal offering of the first ripening grain. Minchas ha'omer kos medaber. The verse is speaking. The verse is speaking of the meal offering of the Omer. The verse is speaking of the meal offering of the Omer. Yeah, we said it already. Shehiba, Aviv. How is it brought? It's brought Aviv. Aviv means spring. It means the first ripening, literally, of the grain. The time of the first ripening of the grains. And it comes from barley. Minasaidim hiba. Shnemer kan. Aviv. Menahalan kisera Aviv. Koli ba'esh. Parshin fire. Should be abstinence al ur b'ibashal kalayim. It's dried over the fire in a perforated vessel for parching, almost like a colander. A colander is?
Yeah.
The big pasta thing.
Yeah, the holes. So you'd put that over the fire, and then it would basically parch it, would dry it up. Because if it's not, because the problem with barley when it's fresh is it's moist and it's not came into flour. It would be squished. So you have to make it hard, dry it, and then you can grind into flour, coarse flour. Geres caramel. How do you do it? Geres caramel means coarsely ground while still moist. Interesting. So you said it can't be too moist, but it's a little bit moist. I guess. Coarsely ground. Uzdain to the rescue. What's the translation? To roast it so they can be ground into flour. Geras means Geras caramel. Rashi seems to be a little bit confusing. You just told me you dry it so it's not moist, but now it's still moist, and
Why can't you do both?
because you just told me one doesn't work. So if it's moist, you can't make it flat. Now you're saying it has to be ground while it's moist.
No,
So.
but it's roasted.
but it said it's moist. Moist means it's not moist. It's not
It's gonna
dry.
be-
Is not moist. You're drying it so it's hard, and then you can crush it up, make it nice dry
Right
flour.
after you dry, maybe you roast it.
So why is it saying a grusa seems to mean coarsely ground?
I don't know.
I don't know. I have to really think about that. Let's see Rashi further. Geras, what does that mean? The etymology, the word means shvira tchina, means crushing up. Gars v'echaim shel groisis means grinding in a grit mill, as it says v'yaris b'char. It's gars nafshi. Carmel, while the husk is still full. Shatfu alecha maleh b'kash shula, because the grain is moist and full on its stalks. B'chal kina krei malilas carmel. That's why it's called. Malilas means like unripe grain. Is also a term for unripe grain. It's called carmel. Caramel wine. I don't know what they call it. But it means unripe wine. It means unripe grain, unripe produce. Or fresh, like fresh. The point is saying the way I think, the way again, I don't have to look it up more, which I'm not going to do. Is the time of the grinding is when it is moist, but you through parching it make it dry to grind. So it's crushed up stuff that is naturally moist,
Right, and then you're going to.
but you're through this parching are not making moist. Right. That's the way I would think it means. Carmel, good way to remember. Carmel means fresh produce. Car means a pillow. Mul is like mully, full. It's when the pillow of the stalk is full with its grain. Oh. The pillowcase.